NDAs are no more, and the cast from Love is Blind season 10 are starting to dish the dirt, which means they're telling their side of the story, basically. I mean, we all saw the reunion. For me, it was one of the best reunions, the one I was the most excited for, probably ever. But I think there was so much that needed to be talked about that we still walked away feeling a tad ripped off. So a few things got touched on, but not really clarified. So let's see what we can clean up today. Now that much of the cast is making their rounds on various podcasts and media outlets. And I just have to talk about Priyanka, for a minute, okay? Because I am reverting back to my first impression of her. So my first impression of her, I don't actually remember her from the pods. I don't even know if we saw her in the pods. I don't care. Was the bowling alley mixer when she turned to Chris and said, "Are you okay?
Are you okay?"
No, I'm fine.
And a lot of people said that they thought maybe she was saying like, "Oh, like, are you okay?" Because, I mean, what Amber said to him was embarrassing. So they took it as maybe like she was being a little bit more sarcastic, but I took it as she was being like, "Oh, oh my gosh, like, are you okay?" And that just turned my stomach. Especially when it was then followed by her and Bree and Ashley having this ridiculous conversation with Chris where they weren't just telling him that he is an absolute, like, disgusting moron. Those were the only things that needed to be said to him. Nothing more. I feel like, if anything, they gave him the opportunity to say horrible things about Jessica, to do further damage, as if he had not already said enough. We know on the reunion that this concert got brought up, and what do you know? It's the same three culprits. Bree and Pikmisha and Ashley yet again. Now, it's not Jessica's back that they don't have, but Brittany. And I know that there's probably 18 sides to that story, but I just find it wild that none of them reached out to Bree and were like, "Oh, hey, like, we're going to this thing. Like, Devonte's coming. Like, you don't want to go to this concert?" Or even contact after and be like, Devonte was at this concert with us and he was kind of weird. We feel like maybe he made up a story about his Airbnb getting canceled so that he could spend the night with us. And then he was kind of absent at the concert. We don't know, like, where did he disappear to? Like, we're not sure who he was with or what he was doing. No, they didn't do any of that. And surprise, surprise, guess who filled Brittany in on all of it? Our girl's girl, Amber. No shocker there. So I'm going back to my original opinion of Pikmisha there, and I'm sticking with it. I felt like she redeemed herself for a minute there during that conversation that she had with Ashley and Alex, where she kind of called Alex out, but did she just do that because Ashley's one of her besties? But when you're a girl's girl, you are a girl's girl. You don't pick and choose. You don't let one man get away with lying and betraying and disrespecting a woman and then hold another one accountable. No, you are all around a girl's girl, and Pikmisha is not. In that situation, Ashley was the only one that took any accountability. That is what Brittany has come forward and said. And it was also only Ashley who took any accountability as far as not standing up for and standing with Jessica in the way that she should have. So that's the last that I talk about Pikmisha there, and we move on because there are way more important things that we need to talk about, because Mr. Cabbage Patch is making the rounds of his own on the podcast and has his version of, well, I was going to say his version of the truth. There's no truth. I don't hear anything honest coming out of his mouth. So he did a couple of interviews where he said very conflicting things. So he said on one interview that he has been with this current fiance. Are they even engaged? It's still kind of up in the air. That he's been with her for 7 months. Oops. Was that a slip? Because that would mean that he was cheating on his Arizona girlfriend, Taylor, with this new one. And the way that things kind of line up, we wonder, like, was there even an overlap with Brittany and Taylor? Like, how quick? Like, it was like immediately he got on Hinge. And this is all alleged because I don't know. I didn't see him on Hinge. But that raises another point. Are you allowed to leave the show and just hop on Hinge? Because if I saw someone on Hinge and like a month later, I'm watching Love is Blind and I'm like, well, I know that he didn't get married because I just saw, well, actually, not that it means anything when you see a man on Hinge. It certainly doesn't mean that he's not married. But anyway, for argument's sake, you're going to go, oh, well, he obviously, I know how that storyline plays out because I just saw that dude on Hinge 6 weeks ago. Anyway, whatever. He is mixing up his stories and said in another interview that they'd been together for a month and a half or something like that, which fits more the narrative that, he didn't necessarily cheat on Taylor. He just jumped from one relationship to the next. And then I just watched him on another interview where when they asked, like, well, how long have you been with your fiance? And he was like, that's complicated. It's hard to explain. No, it's not. It's hard to remember what lie you told yesterday. It's not hard to explain what actually happened, Alex. I mean, Devonte, because I understand that he knew her previously. So it's not hard to say, we actually met at college 5 years ago, which people are saying he's 32. They met at college. Well, I went to college when I was 27, so it's not impossible. So it's not hard to say, we met at college 5 years ago. We've been acquaintances. We reconnected a month and a half ago, 7 months ago, whatever the truth is. I think 7 months, but I'm just guessing. And we've been together ever since. Was that complicated? Did you have trouble following that? No, of course you didn't, because that's very simple. I've dated people that I knew for years before. It wasn't a complicated story. Oh, we actually went to high school together and hung out in somewhat of the same crowd, lost touch after high school, reconnected. Now we're dating. Not complicated. So lies, 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 lies. I watched the podcast with his ex, Taylor, who he met on Hinge, started dating not long after filming ended, and him and Brittany broke up, or were they broken up? We don't know. And she tells an eerily similar story that I feel like would be hard to make up. I don't believe that she's lying. I thought that she came off very authentic. She looked to me like a woman who was holding herself together emotionally, and she was struggling to do so. It did not feel theatrical in any way whatsoever. Very similar story, came on strong, love bombing, was all in, was affectionate. And then he had to take a trip back to Ohio and came back a completely different person. Then throughout their 5-ish month relationship, she explained that he fed her crumbs that kept her strung along, basically. That she involved him in her children's lives, which we know how I feel about that, but it does happen. I would assume that if you are truly a single mother, like I'm not really truly a single mother, I share custody with my ex-husband. So I have time to spend with a partner where my children are not around. But if you were really a single mom, like on your own, or you're with someone that only is a part-time dad every other weekend or whatever, it would be really hard to carry on a relationship and not have them around your kids. Doesn't matter, but that's the case that she really allowed him into her life, and she's feeling a lot of pain, especially with they just broke up in December, mid-December, and now he is having a baby with another woman and is allegedly engaged to be married. Well, Devonte says that they are. That would be difficult. And she said that they had discussions about having children, where she said, I'm 34, so it would be kind of like the clock is ticking here if you're wanting to have children together, which is just wild to me to even be discussing, like having children with someone that you've been with for a few months. But I was going to say, who am I to judge? That's what I'm doing. I'm here judging. Anyway, she said as well that the plan was for them to take a trip to Ohio together for Thanksgiving, where she was going to meet his family, and let her go as far as buying her plane ticket. And the trip never happened. So that would have been the end of November, and then they broke up middle of December. I love that Nick did point out on the reunion when they showed that little soccer moment between Devonte and Alex that, like, who's that guy? Is that the real Devonte? Because that's not who you pretended to be on the show.
I said it too. Devonte, where was all that energy throughout the rest of the experience?
Mr. Quiet, reserved, introverted, needs 23 and a half hours of alone time every day. So who was that guy? Another thing that Taylor said was that she didn't even know if Devonte was actually even living with Alex. And he has said, allegedly, that he didn't actually live in Arizona, that he didn't live with Alex. Well, you were dating someone in Arizona and you didn't clear things up. He was like, well, saying he just didn't really want to get into it. You just seemed that you just didn't want to get into a lot of things. And I think that you're just trying to save face. You don't want to come off like the bad guy, but hate to break it to you, bud, but you did anyway. And so Taylor was saying that he was running back and forth between Arizona and Ohio, and that is one of the reasons why she does really feel like Devonte was living a double life, that he was with this other woman at the same time that he was with her. Something else interesting that he said on the podcast was that him and this fiance have all of their social media set to not show them anything Love is Blind related. I wonder who decided on that one. Because if she starts seeing things, she's going to realize that the math is not mathing and that she is with a cheating, lying, dirty dog. Because if he did cheat on Brittany, on Taylor, if he cheated on Taylor with her, then he was cheating on her too. So is that why she isn't seeing anything? She hasn't watched the show either. And he says she doesn't want to watch the show. I'd want to watch the show. Yeah, I definitely want to watch the show. Especially given how recent it was. Yeah. And he was apparently just engaged to someone else in 2024. So you've had 3 engagements in 2 years? Yeah. And you can say I'm all one-sided here. I am. I'm all one-sided here. I don't believe a freaking word that comes out of his mouth. And this podcast, this Roxanne and Chantel, apparently, I don't know which one is which, but apparently he works for the same company as one of them. Because at first I'm like, oh, look at him smiling away because he's like, they're believing me. They're buying it. But they know each other. So, and they were, backing up all of his lies. And I thought, this is wild to me. And then it came out, it got mentioned in that interview that they do work for the same company. So I was like, okay, it's all starting to make sense now. Why the vibe and everything is like completely different from other interviews that I've seen him in. He said that it is, again, he had said this before, that he does have an issue with being upfront with people and he just doesn't want to hurt anyone. And he said, I should have just been honest. That would have been easier. If that would have been easier, that's what you would have done because you're selfish and you're emotionally immature. So if it would have been easier, you would have told Brittany the truth. You wouldn't have strung her along. You think in some way that was easier to string her along, to make her believe that you were still going to get married? You knew the second that you laid eyes on her that you were not going to marry her. And he has a type and she isn't it. So fine. We saw this happen on season 9. And I can't remember their names because I'm just suck at names. But she was like a blonde woman and he was Asian. And as soon as they met, it was like a no, she wasn't attracted to him. And she strung him on for like a minute, but she didn't even go on the trip. They didn't even go on the trip. So, yeah, she should have been more honest right up front, but she didn't string him along on the trip through living together, through like nearly walking down the aisle. That was like the day before their wedding or whatever that it got called off. So I can't remember if it was him or Brittany that had mentioned that they actually had that conversation earlier or the day before, where when cameras were not present, where they decided to not get married. So they actually had to recreate that conversation in front of cameras, and apparently that's why it came off like a little bit more bantery, because this is a very serious conversation. And that's why when I guess he said something about like, oh, well, we'll be in touch. And it was like, it was a joke, but it came off like weird, but it was because they had already previously had the conversation. But especially if you had this conversation off camera, and we know that his intention was never to get married. He did not walk out of that house with the thought in his mind that they were still going to be together. No, he was just saving face. He was doing what was easy. He's too much of like a baby, a freaking man child, to be honest with this woman. Hey, I'm not going to marry you. So I've seen Brittany on a couple of podcast interviews as well, and she doesn't really tell a different version of the story, except really that for her being on the inside, she's like, I understand looking from the outside, it's like, why are you still with this person? Why are you believing them? The signs were so obvious. But when you're in it and your brain is like in a battle, coming off of this massive love bombing that happened in the pods. And then she said, sure, you didn't see it on camera because of edits. And Devonte admitted it as well. But they had a lot of good times together. They weren't shown on camera. But they did spend time with some of his family, some of his friends, did fun activities together, shared moments together, and they weren't on camera. So she was like, yeah, I was being thrown crumbs. And I was believing it. And he was telling me, we're still going to get married. Be patient. This is still going to happen. And I chose to believe him. And I did a video on this exact scenario. I used Ashley and Alex, but it's the same thing. How your brain is going through these two very conflicting things where one is wanting to hold on to the relationship that you very much believe is real, because that's what you felt during all of the love bombing. Our brains naturally hold on to these beliefs. So now, even though we're going, the fact that he doesn't want to touch you, the fact that he doesn't want to compliment you, knowing what we know about what he said about her, it's just so obvious, but your brain will hold on to that belief that the relationship is real, that the love is real, that you are going to have a future with this person. So I understand it. I understand being in it. And Taylor went through the exact same thing, where she's saying it was love bombing, and then it got to the point like we wouldn't see each other for like 2 weeks. He would come to my house and he wouldn't even hug me hello. He'd sit on the other end of the couch. I was just holding on, and he would feed me little crumbs, and it just kept me strung along. And I've been through that exact same scenario. And I believe that the pain that I was seeing on Taylor's face was 100% authentic because I saw myself. And the thing that you're grappling with the most is you feel not only like you were betrayed by the other person, but that you betrayed yourself. Because now you're looking back on it going, why was I lying to myself? Why was I gaslighting myself? Why didn't I believe what was literally right in front of my face? And it's extremely painful when you're in it. And when you finally get out, the pain doesn't just stop. And you get over the other person before you repair the relationship with yourself. That is the biggest part of healing, is repairing the relationship with yourself. So that's very much what Taylor's going through right now. I feel like Brittany's had a little bit more time to come to terms with all of this. She seems in a decent place at this point. And she said too, because my impression was like girlfriend had this wedding dress for years. But apparently she had just got it knowing she was going on the show. She's like, the whole point of going on the show is to get married. And because I'm so petite and I'm so curvy, and I guess when they go dress shopping, they only get so much selection. She's like, I didn't want to look like a freaking potato on my wedding day. So I went out ahead of time in anticipation of I'm going on the show and I'm going to be getting married, and I bought a dress. It's not like this thing has been hanging in my closet for 10 years. I still don't know. I did still get the impression from the show and from the edits that she really just wanted to get married. Is that because we're seeing everything that we're seeing going, it's so obvious to us that this man is not into you? I don't know. But I do really believe that for both of them, it was a serious case of intermittent reinforcement, which we know it becomes like an addiction. You become addicted to the crumbs that they're tossing you, and you start to live for those crumbs. It all just felt really, really sad to me listening to Taylor's story and it being so similar. And people need to realize that, like, you're fucking with people, and that when you deceive people, when you play them in that way, like, you are actually scarring people. And you have to grow up. If you don't want to be with someone, tell them. And don't pretend like I don't want to hurt anyone. No, you're doing it for you. The only reason you're staying with someone and lying to them and dragging them along, let them move on with your life. You're doing it for you because you're weak. Grow up, be a man. Yes, you look like a Cabbage Patch doll, but it doesn't mean that you need to act like a child, okay? So another one that I really think was just trying to save face, Jordan, disappointing. So I saw Jordan on AD's podcast and I thought, what a cop out. Such a freaking cop out. At one point he said, I don't really want to say because, Amber's not here to defend herself. That sounds real great. That sounds like you're such a nice guy. But really, Amber can defend herself. It's not like Jordan has a big platform and Amber doesn't have a platform to tell her side of the story, explain her version, defend herself. She does just as much as he does. So to me, that just felt like a cop-out. Like, I don't want to say anything because either it's a lie and she's going to have the receipts to prove it, or I don't want to look bad, so I'm going to say something that actually makes me look like a stand-up guy. And I don't think that Jordan is evil. He's not an Alex, a Chris, a Devonte, but to see him slide toward that end of the scale is disappointing to me, because Amber is also coming forward, obviously, with her version of events. And I said before, I think that the truth always falls somewhere in between the two sides. There's three sides to every story, because I don't know. I can't say for sure. I mean, I can't say for sure that Jordan isn't being fully honest. That's not my impression. I don't know if Amber's being 100% honest either. She seems to be admitting some things that don't put her in the best light. So she's come forward to clear up the wedding story. Jordan had said that she showed up very late to his best friend's wedding, that she showed up drunk, she got blackout drunk, she fell asleep at a table. She tells a very different story. She drove herself to that wedding. She was having car trouble, and that is why she was late. She did not show up drunk. She had driven herself. She said, I had not drank anything, but people were giving me Tito's. She said, so she was drinking vodka, and she said, I never drink hard alcohol. I only ever drink wine. And she said, I did get drunk. And she said, I was exhausted. I had a lot of stressful stuff going on at work. I was completely exhausted. The alcohol hit me. I did fall asleep at a table. I was drunk. That Jordan then took her, put her in her car, and left her in the parking lot in her car where she slept and then woke up, not really sure where she was or what was going on, and that he hadn't come and checked on her or anything, and she then got a car home. That does not make Jordan look good. I can understand it's your best friend's wedding. She has got too drunk and she needs to take accountability for that. The alcohol hit her hard, but like when you realized, holy shit, this alcohol has hit me hard, she should have got a car, went to a hotel, whatever. And Jordan also, once he recognized how drunk she was, rather than sticking her in a car, passed out drunk alone in a parking lot, he should have got her a car home. He should have set up a hotel for her. Where was he staying? Send her back to wherever you're staying for the night. Continue on your night or whatever. And I don't know, again, I think that the truth of that story lies somewhere in the middle, because he had made another accusation that she missed a bunch of things. She didn't show up. She was a no-show. And she said there was only one other event that she was supposed to go to, that she was making a special dessert surprise for him. He had said that he loves raspberry cheesecake or something, and so she was making him this raspberry cheesecake because she was heading there anyway for this event, and that something was going on with the electrical in her house, and she kept tripping a breaker or whatever. And that then it was hard for her to get ready, that she was basically showering in the dark, and she was late to this event, and that she was in communication with him the whole time saying, this is what's going on, I'm going to be late. And then she was late and he didn't even want to see her. So had, I guess, turned her away because he didn't even know that she had brought him this dessert that she had made, and she drove all the way home. And text him the next day this big long thing and had said, I got, I was making you this dessert. And he had said, oh, that was nice of you. And then I believe it was, she had said, I'll give you space or whatever. And then when the next time she saw him was when he came to her house, brought a basket of her things and ended things. And she was like, what do you mean? Like, I don't want this to end. I still want to try to make this work. I love you. We're married. This isn't just like we're boyfriend and girlfriend and we're breaking up. Like, we're getting divorced. Like, we are married. Apparently she was even really taken by surprise that he said yes at the altar. She did not believe that he was going to say yes. She said that was one of the happiest moments of her life. She also mentioned as well that whole upset at the bowling alley mixer wasn't just because he was talking about his fears of meeting Emma, that she overheard him say to Vic, well, I don't know if they're actually going to make us go through with the wedding because Amber has a child. That's what allegedly triggered her. So, and she thought, like, what do you mean, like, make us go through with the wedding. Like, you don't have to go through with anything. You don't have to show up to the wedding. You don't have to say yes at the wedding. So when he said yes, she thought, had this big epiphany and realized like how much he loves her and wants to be with her. So it was all very confusing to her when after the wedding he wasn't showing up like a husband. And interesting too that we saw a conversation on the wedding day that he had with his family where he said, I absolutely do not want to move to Mount Vernon. There's no nightlife there. I want to stay where I am. And Amber says that they had a discussion right before where he said, I talked to my family and you know what? I'm going to move to Mount Vernon. It's just temporary though. And then we will find somewhere that sort of in between or whatever that works for both of us. And she said she was completely fine with that. She didn't ever need for it to be a permanent thing, them living in Mount Vernon, and that she could work out the school thing with Emma, but she didn't want to just rip Emma out of the school that she's currently in and move an hour away to where he is. So very conflicting stories there. And she says, she has been completely broken and she's starting to heal now, but I don't know. She also addressed the drinking, and she said that it was his family and friends have gone online and talked about that she's like some sort of raging alcoholic. And she's like, this has been really bad for me as a mother, that people are coming forward and being like, you should have your daughter taken away. And you know what? Parents are allowed to have a glass of wine. So do we know that she's like a raging alcoholic? She's like, I don't even really drink. With my work schedule and everything, I don't even really drink. And she's like, yeah, I know that you saw me tipsy on the show at some events. She's like, I have 2 glasses of wine and I'm tipsy. And she's like, I'm on the show. You're nervous. There's a lot going on. I didn't have my child with me, so I was letting loose a little bit. But not only do I not have a drinking problem, but I also like hardly even drink. I don't go out, and I'm not just sitting at home getting slosh. So, and I think that she was very upset that Jordan's family and friends were the ones that were starting all of that, because she's like, I have a child and you could cause issues for me with having custody of my child. So I don't know. I haven't seen those. I knew, I had caught wind of that there was some kind of rumor that her drinking had played a part in their reasonings for separating. I know Jordan said on AD's podcast, so he's dating someone else now. He has a girlfriend. I don't quite remember where they met, but I think it was a sliding into the DMs kind of situation. Amber had said, interesting, she has some sort of online platform, and she's like, she's thinking it feels a little opportunistic of this woman. I don't know. I don't know anything about that, but Jordan said that she appreciates him and really shows up for him. Okay. From Amber's version of events, it doesn't sound like Jordan really showed up for her. He was only coming to see her on Saturdays and then leaving Sunday because he, had to work or do whatever. And apparently he works from home. So I don't really know why, other than he wanted to be out at the bars with his friends, why he couldn't have been there more often. Because we know, obviously, she doesn't work from home and she has a schedule with her daughter. So it wasn't possible for her to be with him as often, that it was much easier for him to come to her. And they only live, again, conflicting. She says 45 minutes. He says an hour. Potato, like it's a 15-minute difference. Still an hour? Whoop-de-doo. And why couldn't you just come and stay for a few days when you can work from home? And Amber's off on Fridays. So none of that made sense to me. I dated someone before that lived an hour and a half away, and he had the flexibility to work from home. So he used to come to my place. I worked in the office, so I would go 8 hours, work my office job while he was at my house working from home. And we would be together pretty much anytime I didn't have my kids. So he would come Friday when I would get off work, and he would leave Monday morning. And then through the week when I didn't have my kids, he would come and then I would go in the morning, go to work, come home, we'd spend the evening together, go to bed together, wake up in the morning together. I'd go to work, he'd be here, and then I'd come home, we'd spend the evening together. It's not that complicated. He had lots of flexibility that if he wanted to be there, if he wanted to be spending time with her, he could have. He says that the situation was toxic, so he didn't want to move in, and he was blaming her jealousy or insecurities on things that happened with exes. And she's like, yeah, I did have exes that cheated on me, and I did a lot of healing from that. She used to be a woman hater, which can happen when a man that you're with cheats on you with a bunch of women. Sometimes it's easier to blame the woman. And she admits to it all. She was very intimidated by attractive women, and she would want to put them down. She would want to find flaws in them. And she worked really hard to get over that. And I mean, we see now she's a girl's girl. She said the insecurities that she was having were not coming from past relationships. They were coming from Jordan's behavior. She's like, I felt insecure because I'm like, my husband doesn't even want to be around me. My husband doesn't want to spend time with me. That's what made me feel insecure. And I think that is totally understandable. I don't know if we'll ever find out the real truth. I think there's little bits of truth sprinkled in. I think Amber's being more truthful than Jordan is. I think Jordan's very concerned about looking bad. I think he's concerned about how he is perceived. He doesn't want to look bad. I think that it's actually making him look worse. In my opinion, it makes him look worse. If he was just honest, I don't think that I would have as negative of opinion of him as I now do. And it's not fully negative. Because like I said, I don't think that he's a terrible person. But I think he fucked up. Like, I think that he didn't go about things the right way. He didn't take it seriously. I do not think that he was ready for an Insta family. I know you're under a lot of pressure on the show, and Amber said they didn't even have food ready for their wedding because they didn't think there was going to be a reception. That's how sure they were that Jordan was saying no. They hadn't even they had to bring food in from somewhere. I wish them both the absolute best, and if something new comes up on them that's exciting, I'll cover it. But at this point, I consider them case closed. Did anyone else know that Bree and Connor actually never broke up? I thought that scene with them was a breakup. The impression I got at the reunion was some time passed, and then they kind of worked things out and got back together and decided to be in a relationship. But that is apparently not what happened. They never broke up. And again, I guess edits make things look a certain way. So I saw her on a podcast too. It does seem like she's done some work on herself to realize that she was attracted to men who weren't good for her. And Connor's very different from the type of man that she typically dates, that she's watched the show and it was painful for her to watch, where she was like, why is it that I can't even receive love from this person? And my take on her is I don't know. I don't fully trust her. I do hope that she doesn't do Connor dirty. I really haven't seen much of Connor. I haven't seen any interviews or anything really of him. Maybe I just haven't come across them yet. He seems a little bit more like he wants to stay in the background a bit, which I totally understand. I really didn't like him early on in the show. I didn't like him in the pods. Something about, like, he came off as really inauthentic to me, but I don't know how I would come off on the show too. What a weird situation. I would think, like, I don't know, you're trying to bring your best representative, but also trying to be authentic. Like, it's a weird situation. So I don't really know. I don't have much of an opinion of Connor because I don't feel like I really even know him. I know that I did not like how dismissive Bree was towards Brittany at the reunion. And it matched up for me with what I saw at the bowling alley get together, where she was partaking in that little conversation that 3 women were having with Chris, and then even worse afterwards, her little convo with Chris that we're all very aware of. That was just horrible. I don't know how Connor has seen that and not. I don't know how she talked her way out of that one with him. I have no idea. But as far as they are saying they're together, they're happy, and they plan to get married. The goal is marriage. So I haven't seen any interviews with Emma. Doesn't mean that there aren't any out there. I just haven't seen any. But I did see Mike in an interview. He talked again about how they had decided that they were going to say no. They had made an agreement that they were both going to say no. My question is, why'd you go ahead with the wedding then? Why didn't you call off the wedding? If you both sat down together and agreed it's a no, and I thought, okay, well there's an additional incentive to get to the altar. They get more money or something. So maybe that's why they would agree to do it. But now I've heard people say, no, you don't get anything extra just for partaking in the wedding day. So why would you? That doesn't make any sense to me. So he felt super blindsided in that moment. And it made him doubt, like, if she's going to flip on this, what else is she going to flip on? I can't say yes here because we really haven't even clarified the child thing. And even if she said, like, yes, I will have children with you, I want to start a family with you, is she going to flip? Am I going to marry her and then she's going to flip? Which seems reasonable, but the whole thing, it doesn't sit right with me. They had even booked a venue to go celebrate with the family afterwards. So you let the whole wedding happen. You booked a venue to celebrate with your friends and family after. You dragged all of your friends and family to this wedding that you knew wasn't going to happen. For what? And then you didn't date after? I'm still not sure exactly on when it ended because now he has this new girlfriend that it sounds like he's been with for quite a while.
How long you guys been together?
About 7 months.
Wow.
So did it end right then and there? So that's still unclear to me. I'm not sure. There's some unanswered questions there. And that's really, I've seen some interviews with Ashley, but not really any new information there. I know there was some rumors swirling that apparently she was cheating the whole time. I haven't heard anything further about that. Let me know if you know anything about that or you've seen anything confirming that. She says she's not dating right now. I don't really know where Alex is. I don't really care where Alex is. We all know he's a liar. He can say whatever. His story's so complicated and blah, blah, blah. I didn't learn anything new, so I won't waste anyone's time pretending like there's something interesting going on there. And that's really it. Are we done now? I don't know. Is that a wrap? Or is more going to come out? If something super interesting pops up, I'll cover it. Other than that, I'll put it to bed. The only thing I could really think of coming up is maybe more Devonte dirt. I haven't heard anything much from Chris. If he's hiding under a bridge somewhere like the troll that he is, that wouldn't surprise me. I'd be hiding as well if I was him. And I don't care. I'm not interested in anything to do with him. But yeah, only like if something about Devonte and this new fiance comes out that's interesting, I'll cover that. Otherwise, it's moving on. I've been covering Age of Attraction, which is it's a wild one. I don't know if this is going to be a one and done. I think a lot of people are kind of hoping so. It's super cringy. Bachelorette. So Bachelorette is starting later this month. I'm not normally a big Bachelorette watcher. However, we know that the Bachelorette is Taylor from Mormon Wives. So I'm like, this piques my interest. So are you planning on watching this season of The Bachelorette? let me know. Are you interested in talking about this? Because, I mean, from a psychology standpoint, The Bachelor and Bachelorette do tend to be a gold mine. Like this season of Love is Blind was an absolute gold mine. So I'm super happy to cover that one if there's interest on that. Otherwise, I know I'll see you in something soon.